Welcome to Bipolar Talks, your mindful companion for real conversations on mental health, healing, and being human. I'm so honored that you've chosen to spend your time here today. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode with someone you care about. These are the conversations that need to be heard, and you can help spread them. Today's topic is one that's both painful and necessary: weaponizing bipolar disorder. It's a phrase that may feel heavy, and if you've ever lived through it, if your diagnosis has been used to shame you, silence you, or discredit your emotions, you know just how deeply this cuts. This episode isn't about blaming anyone. It's about awareness, healing, and finding better ways to support each other. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let's go on this journey together. When bipolar is blamed for being human, let's start with something simple but powerful. Have you ever had a terrible day? One of those days where your chest is tight, your patience is thin, and life feels too loud? Of course you have. We all have. Now imagine walking in the door and trying to talk about it with someone close to you. Instead of empathy, you hear, "Did you take your meds today?" This sounds like you're bipolar talking. You're overreacting. You're probably just manic again. And just like that, the entire story of your bad day is erased. Not examined. Not explored. Just filed away as symptom. That's not support. That's dismissal. And while those comments might come from a place of concern, they can feel like a slap in the face. Have you ever had your pain reduced to a label? Let that sink in, and keep listening. You deserve more. Emotional experiences are not automatically episodes. Let me say this loud and clear. Having bipolar disorder does not mean every emotion is pathological. Not every moment of sadness is depression. Not every burst of energy is mania. And not every disagreement is a bipolar episode. You can be angry and be right. You can be triggered and still have a valid point. You can cry and still be mentally stable. Sometimes your boss really did say something hurtful. Sometimes a friend really did cross a line. And sometimes, you're just tired and overstimulated from living in a world that doesn't pause for your brain chemistry. When people automatically link your emotions to your diagnosis, it's like they're saying, "You're not allowed to feel unless we medically approve it." That's not just unfair. That's dehumanizing. What would change in your life if the people around you paused and listened before labeling? Think on that. Understanding the difference takes practice, not perfection. Now let's be honest. Sometimes, yes, it is the bipolar. Maybe we haven't slept in days. Maybe we're talking too fast, spending too much, or reacting way out of proportion to a small thing. Maybe it's hard to tell what's real anymore. In those moments, having someone who gently points things out with love, not accusation, can be life-changing. Imagine a loved one saying, "Hey love, you haven't slept much, and you seem overstimulated. Remember we agreed you'd want me to mention when I see a few signs." Or, "I'm here. I want to understand. Is this just a rough day? Or does it feel deeper than that?" That kind of check-in builds bridges, not walls. It allows you to assess yourself with support instead of shame. It's not about ignoring symptoms. It's about responding with care, not control. Who in your life do you trust enough to receive that kind of feedback from? And how can you invite them into your healing circle? The workplace, where silence often feels safer. Let's take this further. Many of us don't just face this kind of dismissal at home, we face it at work too. And because of that, many people with bipolar disorder feel they have to hide, pretend, downplay, mask. We stay silent during check-ins. We push through burnout. We lie about needing mental health days because saying, "I'm not okay," might raise red flags. Especially in high-stakes jobs, the military, education, politics, tech, where stigma isn't just social but systemic. If your employer finds out you have bipolar disorder, it might affect your chances of a promotion, or lead to increased scrutiny, or whispered rumors behind your back. And it's heartbreaking, because your diagnosis doesn't erase your talents, your work ethic, or your contributions. It just adds another layer to how you navigate your environment. Have you ever felt like the price of being honest about your mental health was too high to pay? You're not alone. The media's dangerous myths about mental illness. Now let's talk about a much bigger system: The media. Every time there's a violent tragedy, a shooting, a public assault, a heartbreaking loss, you'll hear one of the first narratives be, the suspect had a history of mental illness. This framing is dangerous. It reinforces the myth that people with mental illness are unpredictable, violent, or scary. But here's the reality. Only 3 to 5% of violent acts involve someone with serious mental illness. And people with bipolar disorder are far more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. We're not dangerous. We're often just hurting. And yet the stigma sticks. Because the public wants closure. They want an easy explanation for something senseless. So they blame mental illness, and in doing so, they create a society that fears instead of helps. What would it take to create a media culture that educates instead of demonizes? Let's be part of that change, one story at a time. Therapy shaming. Turning a lifeline into an insult. Another subtle but painful weaponization happens around therapy. We seek help. We show up for ourselves. And then someone says, maybe you should talk to your therapist about this. You go to therapy that often? Wow. Guess you're really messed up, huh? Statements like that hurt. They imply that healing is a weakness. That growth is something to be ashamed of. But guess what? The people in therapy aren't the broken ones. They're the ones brave enough to admit they're human. They're the ones working through pain instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Therapy isn't a punishment. It's a gift. And no one should be made to feel bad for receiving it. What's one thing therapy has taught you about yourself? Pause, reflect, and honor that growth. Public figures and private pain. A cautionary tale. Let's revisit something that shook the world: Britney Spears and her conservatorship. Here was a globally famous artist, stripped of her autonomy, her finances, and her dignity, all under the justification of protecting her due to mental health concerns. In Britney's own words, they wanted to make me feel crazy. And I'm not. Once a label is attached, it becomes very easy to paint any pushback as instability. If you comply, you're seen as well-behaved. If you resist, you're called unwell. And that is terrifying. How many others have lost their rights under the disguise of mental health care? Let's never stop advocating for better. When faith becomes a burden instead of a support. Some of the deepest pain comes when mental illness is misunderstood in spiritual communities. People are told their depression is because they're not praying enough. Their anxiety means they've lost trust in God. Their bipolar disorder is evidence of sin. But here's the truth. You can believe in God and still need medication. You can love your faith and still go to therapy. You can be spiritual and struggling. And any belief system that makes you feel shame for seeking help is not rooted in love. It's rooted in control. What if your faith was the place where you felt safest to say, I'm not okay? Imagine that freedom. The truth about bipolar. Some days are just hard. To wrap up, I want to say something simple but honest. Living with bipolar disorder means you will have days when everything feels overwhelming. You'll miss events, cancel plans, break down over things you can't explain. And in those moments you might feel like you failed. But you haven't. You're just human. And being human is messy. Even after years of treatment, therapy, and self-awareness, I still have those days. Days where I think, what's the point? Or am I just too much? But I'm still here. And so are you. And that matters more than you know. Let's stop punishing ourselves for being affected by life. Let's normalize the ebb and flow. Thank you for spending this mindful moment with Bipolar Talks. If this episode spoke to your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, subscribe, and share this podcast. You never know who's silently suffering and might feel seen because of it. And as always, this video is for informational purposes only. Please continue working with a qualified professional who knows your story and can support you fully. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be treated with dignity. And above all, you deserve to feel safe, even on your hardest days. Until next time, take gentle care of your heart. You're doing better than you think.